Bring it back.
Welcome to the Endurance Town USA podcast, a state-of-mind destination where endurance athletes of all levels connect. This episode of our Faces Behind the Races mini-series is brought to you by Race Roster, a premier event registration partner for race directors nationwide. I'm Travis Ford, producer and man behind the curtain here at the Endurance Town USA podcast. Today, our host and Race Slow CEO and founder, Samantha Pruitt, traveled to Moab, Utah to participate in this year's Desert Rats 150, then shortly after, sat down with the director, Reid Delman, also known as Gemini Reid. Reid is the owner of Gemini Events and lives in Boulder with his wife and two twin daughters, the inspiration behind the Gemini name. He's dedicated himself to a number of sports over the years, including wrestling, rock climbing, adventure racing, ultrarunning, mountain biking, mixed martial arts, cage fighting, and most recently earned a black belt in Brazilian Ju Jitsu. Gemini Reid has participated in some of the nation's biggest running events, including the Leadville 100 Bike and Run, Hardrock 100, Eco Challenge, which is making a comeback next year, and everything from snowshoe races to Ironman distance triathlons. As a self-proclaimed untalented athlete, he's always looking for the next great challenge and opportunity to push his limits. Sam sat down with Reid shortly after the race in Moab, and I'll let her take it from here.
Hey, Reid. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing excellent. So fantastic to be here with you in Moab, Utah. Thrilled. We just finished Desert Rats together. We were out in the desert, having a good time. How are you feeling?
Tired.
Yeah?
It's a long week.
It's a long week. Did you enjoy yourself out there?
I did. You know, being around all the people and the scenery and it's the backcountry. Great to be there for a whole week. It's just amazing.
Yeah, but a lot of work. A lot of work what you do.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and where were you born?
I was born and grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And moved to Boulder, Colorado when I was 22, 23, something like that.
What brought you there?
The mountains.
Okay.
You know, you look at the mountains and actually my brother lived there. So I went out there and wasn't sure if I was going to keep going on to like Bend, Oregon or something like that. Wanted a good adventure town and stayed there for a couple of weeks with him and decided to stay there.
So, Adventure Town, you were drawn to the mountains. Does that mean that was your upbringing, or you were craving that and that's why you left?
I started rock climbing.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of rock climbing. And that was kind of the early days of climbing gyms and sport climbing and things like that. And, went through Boulder and saw all the great climbing and decided to stay there.
Okay. Well, what kind of sports were you doing when you were younger that made you fit enough to even be a climber at that age?
So I wrestled. My background is wrestling.
Okay.
Elementary school, junior high, high school, college, post-college.
Wow.
I still wrestle a few times a week. And, so then after college after college, before I got into the international wrestling, there was a gap that needed to be filled.
Because you had spare time, or you just craved the wild and crazy, bring it on sort of mentality?
Of the above, yes.
Adrenaline junkie.
Right. Yeah, actually, I went through an adrenaline junkie phase.
Detox.
Right, yeah. Every day you go in there and you work hard and you're focused and you have this drive and excitement every day when you're training. And then all of a sudden it's gone. Need something to fill that gap.
Right. Interesting. So you grew up, what was your family like?
So we would car camp a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. But we weren't, not really adventure. We were around it a little bit, but there's not much in Cleveland.
Not so much.
Right. No mountains to climb or anything like that. But my parents were very environmental, outdoorsy.
Do you have any siblings? Well, you've got one brother, Glenn.
I've got three brothers.
Three brothers?
Three brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Where are they?
So one is in New York, one is in Columbus, Ohio, and one is in Boulder.
Okay.
And we just went with my father recently. Just this past spring, we all went to the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
did a nice little adventure.
Just
weekend.
The brothers or the whole family?
Well, there's just us. My mother passed away a number of years ago.
Okay.
So all five of us got together. And really nice.
Wow.
Yeah. So So yeah, it wasn't our families. It wasn't with our kids and stuff.
Was
like
the
that.
boy? It was the
It's
men.
just the boys.
The
Yep.
men.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. So you and your dad are still close?
Yep.
Where does he live?
He lives in Cleveland still.
Okay. Can't get him to move out to Boulder, huh?
No. He grows roots.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's one of those characters.
yeah,
And you have a wife and 2 children that
Yeah.
are twins, correct?
that's right.
Okay. How old are they?
They just turned 15.
Wow.
Be driving soon.
Woo! Are you
Yeah.
excited about that?
There's
Nervous?
some things I'm looking forward to it.
Mhm.
I know they're looking forward to it, and I want them to have that independence. Yeah, actually, I just got a text that they want me to take them for the driver's test um, right when I get back from here.
Okay. So they're going to go together. They're close twins.
Yeah.
They get
Yeah,
along?
we're a close family. We do all kinds of adventures together. We just went up to British Columbia just a couple weeks ago. I was home for a week and then came to the desert. Up in British Columbia doing some sea kayaking, and it rained the whole time. Typical British Columbia weather, and just beautiful. Then I went back for a week and came
So the
here.
whole family went? Your wife and kids went sea kayaking as well, or?
Yeah, the 4 of us.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they're good sports.
Yes, they are. I drag them all out on these things,
But
but
they go.
right, but I know that they're thankful afterward.
Yeah. Mhm. That's cool.
And we're going on a rafting trip 2 days after I get back.
Where's that going to be?
Just down the Colorado,
Okay.
near Fruta.
So fun. So your wife is really adventurous because she's married this crazy guy like you, and basically it's never been a dull moment, I'm sure, right? You met in Boulder?
Good or bad? No, actually, we met in Columbus.
Oh, you
And then-
did?
yeah, and then she moved out to Boulder.
Oh,
We dated for 12 years.
what?
Now we've been married for 16.
You're too young for any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
right?
Right.
We'll put things in perspective. So, what were some of the major influences on you when you were younger to get you into this adventurous lifestyle, whether experiences or people or both?
I'd have to say my parents. Again, they were big into the environment and the outdoors. Very, big into activities. And again, I'm a very physical person. I love the wrestling. I love going out and exploring and pushing myself. A lot of that is it. It all kind of comes from the same place. I would way rather go to Moab and go on some big adventure in Moab where I push my limits than to go to Africa and be on some tour,
Mhm.
see the sights. To me, the depth. I prefer the depth. Really getting a sense of an area rather than just going and visiting.
So, you don't go to the Grand Canyon and stand on the rim, look down, and go, wow, that's awesome, and then get back in your car? You don't
I
do that?
don't. I don't do that. Nope. This last time,
Because most of America does.
yeah.
Mhm.
This last time we went, I ran down to the bottom, back up.
Mm.
I have run rim to rim to rim before. Yeah, sightseeing thing, and I feel bad too because I don't go to museums. I don't take my kids to museums and the opera or plays or anything like that. So I have some guilt over that.
Why?
But-
Why would you have guilt? What do you think they're missing?
It might be something they would enjoy.
Okay.
I don't know what they would enjoy because they haven't experienced that. They've experienced some really cool stuff.
Yeah. And when they're older, they can go.
Right.
And I'm sure actually they're teenagers. They would tell you now, if they really want to do something. I'm sure they're probably pretty vocal about their ideas now.
So we play a game.
Oh, yes.
This
Is the family or just you and the kids?
me and the kids.
Okay.
Right? That we call it kids or therapist.
Okay.
Years from now, who will they be telling about this adventure? Their kids or their therapist?
That's
Right.
awesome.
Right.
I love it. And do you ask them this during the adventure? Or do you wait till afterwards?
We play around with it both. Yeah. When one is upset and crying because we're,
Having
the
a bad
hike,
experience.
yeah, the hike is too hard.
Mhm.
They'll say, this is definitely a therapist adventure.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, it's not always, they're not always going to be proud and tell their kids about it. Sometimes they'll be telling their therapist about it.
Well, actually, in the lessons that are being learned, they will use those,
Right.
even if they were hard-earned lessons.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's always a value.
Yeah.
And it sure the hell was not boring, right?
Right,
Because then they have
right.
nothing to tell, and there's no story.
They are not having a
no
boring
memory.
child. That's for
Mhm.
sure.
And you didn't either, it sounds like.
No.
Mhm. Okay.
I had 3 brothers, 4 boys in the family. It was not boring.
What did you study in school? What were your interests?
So I have a degree in psychology.
What? So you are the parent and the therapist at
Right,
times.
right.
Okay. So you studied
then-
psychology.
And then I went back for an education degree and taught for a few
What did you teach?
high school history. And in that, social studies. So I taught psychology and law and world history.
Law.
Yeah, high school law.
Hey guys, are we all in on this or what? Hey, let's take an aid station break. I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsor, Race Roster. Not only is Race Roster the leading endurance sport industry race registration platform, but they are truly our kind of people. Founded by athletes, their team gets us and it goes all in on helping race directors like me build my business and stay sane. Which many days of the week can be pretty challenging. Grab a demo with them. Find out more. raceroster.com/EnduranceTown USA. So you decided to finish up that experience, or you got another opportunity, or is that when you launched your race production business?
So my wife was pregnant
Mhm.
with my girls and had to figure out, who's going to stay home with the kids. And she was making more money than I would ever make as a teacher.
Mhm.
So I stayed home
That's cool.
and
With
launched a
twins.
business. Yeah,
Mhm.
stayed home with twins. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, how was that for you being a new dad? You have twins, you're the stay at home dad, your wife's leaving to go to work every day.
Right.
What was your life like?
I worked out a lot.
You did for stress reduction, for sanity?
Well,
or-
for stress reduction, yeah, and like because they would have child care at the gym.
Mhm.
But I did that, and we didn't do much sitting around.
Mhm.
So from day one, they
Movers
Yeah.
and shakers.
yeah
Mhm.
yeah. Part of it, a big part of it was for my sanity.
Mhm. Sure.
Anytime we were sitting home, I felt the downhill slide starting,
Mhm.
and we would go out and have fun.
Mhm. That's so cool. So, what kind of things did you do with these young twins? Where did you take them, and what were some of your grand adventures?
So so I was potty training them at a campground on the pit toilets in Leadville.
No way.
Right.
This is awesome. How old were they at that point? Do you remember? And you
I
had your
don't know,
kids at Leadville. That's
that-
classic.
3 years. I don't know
Uh-huh.
how old you. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
So
how
you're
old you were.
camping and you're at Leadville.
I decided I'd go up there and acclimate. My
Okay.
wife was working,
Okay.
so I went up there. A week and a half ahead of the race,
Uh-huh.
and
Oh, you were going to be in the race. You
I
were
was running.
acclimating for Leadville.
right.
You take your twin 2.5, 3-year-olds or whatever with
Right.
you to the race to acclimate. This
Right.
is fantastic.
Right.
Okay.
So we just camped. We just camped for that time, and
Wow.
and like I said, they were potty training, so
Uh-huh.
they were learning on the pit toilets at the campground.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Did you finish Leadville that year?
I don't
Hard to
remember.
remember.
I have some DNFs there, and
Sure. Everybody
finishes.
probably does.
right.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
And your
it was-
wife was cool with that. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, oh yeah. She's an ultra runner.
Oh, she is.
She's
Okay.
way more of a runner than I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other grand adventures you took these young twins on?
Well, one of our big things recently is river trips,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so great that they go out there with friends. and it's not a whole lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So we started backpacking with them when they were 4.
Okay.
And
They were on foot or are they on your back?
they
at
were
this
on
point?
foot.
Uh-huh.
Yep. No, we never did the back
Carry
thing,
them around.
right?
And, uh-huh.
And they always had their own backpack.
Okay.
And over the years,
Their
They
backpacks got bigger.
yes, they started carrying more of their own weight.
Uh-huh.
It started out there would be their sleeping bag and a personal item.
Okay.
That's all they.
At
that's all
4, though, they're carrying that.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I
Yeah.
love this.
And then and in just a couple years after we started backpacking with them, we were going up over passes in Colorado. So about 6 years old, we were going up over some of the passes in Colorado with full backpacks.
Mm-hmm. For days at a time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think the first couple years was 4 days each.
Mm-hmm.
And we were out there filtering water and setting up.
They'd
the
come back
tents
to
and-
first grade and tell these stories to their classmates. I'm just
right.
getting this visual of like, when you come back from summer and everybody's like, so what'd you do this summer?
Right, yeah. But again, who knows if that's kids or therapist?
It's
Right.
both.
Are they going to be bragging about it to their kids, or are they going to be
Mhm.
complaining to their therapist about it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why these river trips are so great, because we still get some of that same
Yeah.
excitement without the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
They just they haven't enjoyed the hard work yet.
So when did you launch Gemini Adventures?
So they were born in 2003, and at our first race, my wife was pregnant with
Mhm.
the twins.
What was the first race you produced?
The desert. Well, it had a different name at the time,
Okay.
but it was the Desert Rat. It's now the Desert Rats Trail Running Festival.
Okay.
At the time, we called it the Spring Desert Ultra,
Mm-hmm.
and I really created it with the Desert Rat stage race in mind. That's where I started.
Okay.
And
This was a
then-
1 day initially?
Yep,
Okay.
it was a 25 and a 50 mile. So the 25, it was one loop for 25, and then in reverse direction for the 50.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just came about because I was putting together the stage race,
Mm-hmm.
and another.
What year was this?
So this was 2002, 2003,
Okay.
and another race around us was canceled that year. Since then, it's come back, and it's a really good race. So I had the same format
Mm-hmm.
after this race that was canceled. I said, might as well do it. I'm already talking about permits and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I could put on this race. And there were a lot of bumps along the way. at the
As there
start.
are when you're self-employed in any business.
Right.
But yeah, race directing has its own challenges.
Right. Yeah. And I had some great friends that really helped out in the beginning. They
Mm.
put some long hours into, the night before the event and things like that.
Yeah.
And, but now it runs way more smoothly, and I'm not
Mhm.
asking so much of my friends.
Mm-hmm. Everything starts out volunteer based, of course.
yeah.
It's just a twinkle in your eye and a bunch of volunteers who
Right.
are just as crazy as you, signing on for
right.
the adventure.
Yeah.
And then eventually it becomes a business.
Yeah.
So, what point were you doing this full time?
Well, from the beginning,
Okay.
because again, it was a decision that I was going to quit teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But those early years were tough. It was back before internet like we have it now. Any internet was dial up,
Mm-hmm.
and I would trying to create our website with dial up,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and everything was so slow. I would sit there and feed the babies while the page was being pulled up.
That's awesome.
So it was a tough start.
Uh-huh. So tell me a little bit about your race directing experiences. You started the company and you had the one race, and
Yeah.
now you have many races. Tell me about how the company's developed.
So it's been growing pretty organically, again, changing directions sometimes and making some changes. I've got a couple of great people working with me now,
Mhm.
working in the office.
Mhm.
One of the big things was when I actually got an office,
Mhm.
getting out
A
of the
real
house.
office.
A real office,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Go
It's
to work every
it's a
day.
huge commitment.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's well worth it. When I was working at home, it was very difficult. Like I said, I was on dial up and sitting in the one room, and there's always a baby crying or more laundry that needed to be done, or
Yeah.
you put them down for a nap, and and you have to get as much work done as you can, and then it all just stops because they wake back up and
Mhm.
you have to.
One's asleep, one's awake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when I got the office, that was a big change.
You've got Kyla in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I've
Yep.
met her. She's fantastic.
Yep. She's been with
what's
me
she doing for you?
She's been with me for 6 years.
Great.
Yeah, we have a great friendship and great working relationship. So it helps, and I think the combination. I think our rapport adds to the vibe
Mhm.
of the events.
Mhm.
You know, she brings some things to the table that I bring some things to the table,
Mhm.
and I could never order T-shirts for our races that look as good as the ones that she designs.
Yeah, she's got the female touch.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. And the organizational touch.
Mhm.
There's times when I have to go in and I have to knock some heads, and
Mhm. Totally.
we work together really well.
So now that you've got a new office and you've got some staff that are committed to, helping you grow the company, what's your vision?
So one of the things that we're doing is we're moving into tours, running and mountain biking and hiking.
Mhm.
You
What
know,
about water?
we do have some permits for water.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's a passion of yours.
Yep.
Mhm.
I'm enjoying that. That's no big water, but it helps getting people in the backcountry.
Mhm.
Getting out on rafts and multi-day trips. At this point, we're only doing multi-day trips. And then the races that we have, I would love to see our Desert Rats stage race
Mhm.
grow and flourish.
Mhm. That's one race. I'm sure that you care about all of the races. I mean, as a race director, it's like our babies that we birth. There's no,
Right.
but I know Desert Rats has a special place in your heart. Why is that?
Because it's true adventure.
Mm.
It makes people dig deeper than any of our other events, than any other event I've seen. And I love going to the 100-mile races and watching the people finish right at the 30-hour mark.
Mhm.
But then it's over. And the connections that people make is just amazing. And to get people out in the backcountry pushing themselves for 6 days, it's incredible to watch their transformations during that week.
Yes. I mean, I've done that race. So I completed that race 4 years ago, and I was just at it with you this last week,
Yep,
bringing a couple
yep.
friends. I didn't do the whole thing, but bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And it was also fun for me to be on the other side of it and volunteer a little bit and, hang out and have a different experience. So that was really fun for me too. It's very unique in where it goes and how it, traverses from Colorado to Utah. The landscape is just magnificent. But I would agree with you that multi-day experience, whether you're going to do it in the adventure space with tours and trips, guided tours, guided adventures, or in a race setting, really, you need to kind of have a few days in before you start stripping away the baggage, before
Yep.
people really are starting to dig deep and explore different pieces of themselves.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
And I find that when I do things with my family,
Mm-hmm.
it takes about 3 days before you start to get that flow.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that flow in 100-mile races or any other adventures
Mm-hmm.
that you do. And the intensity obviously is a little bit lower
Mm-hmm.
than even than a 10K. If you're running a 10K, you push it hard and you work hard.
Mm-hmm.
But to totally immerse yourself in this backcountry experience, I haven't seen any other events that do it like this.
What are some of the highs and lows that you've either experienced yourself, because you've done a lot of these type of things yourself, or that you've witnessed in others?
The lows are when people drop out. As a race director, I love to see a high finishing rate. I love to see people get through a difficult time.
Mhm.
And as a participant, there's always lows. I've dropped out.
Mhm.
I've had
We
DNFs.
all have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's difficult to deal with. If I feel that I didn't need to drop out, I tend to keep going. Quitting doesn't really even enter my mind for the most part. I remember I was doing the Leadville 100 mountain bike race,
Mhm.
and I was having a lot of asthma problems, and they were suggesting that I stop. I had to be mile 70 something,
Mm.
something. And they were suggesting I stop. And nope, I'm going to continue on. I was sitting in a chair. They were doing some tests on me to make sure that I was okay to continue on. And they said, well, it's okay. You could just get in. You could get in a vehicle, and we could take you back. And I kept thinking, no way. There's no way I'm going to get in that vehicle. And I remember sitting there and looking over at the vehicle that was going to take me back. And I said to him, so that's the vehicle I would get in?
Mhm.
And as the words were coming out of my mouth, I'm like, oh no, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm doing this.
Interesting. Yeah.
I've had a few experiences in wrestling too, in my experience in wrestling, where mentally I caved,
Mm-hmm.
or I gave up. I feel I gave up.
Interesting. Okay.
And those are the things that haunt me.
Do they?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
What do you say to yourself in those kind of situations after you've quit? When you gave in to the desire to stop?
I'm pretty hard on myself.
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no excuse. For me, there's no excuse. And people say, oh, you made it 80 some miles of a 100-mile race. That's amazing. No, I went in there hoping to do 100.
Mm-hmm.
87 miles of the Leadville 100 run. That's not what I came here to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To lose in a wrestling match. Yeah. Okay, I made it pretty far, but that's not what I came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, in the long run, I learn from it. But during those times, yeah, it was weak.
Well, it's interesting to me you studied psychology. So I'm very curious now in those instances how you worked through it and then came back to toe the line. Because I know a lot of people, and I've had my own, struggles. We've all had those kind of demons. Where do I want to try again? Why should I keep at this? Maybe I shouldn't be here. All the self-doubt, all the, negative talk.
If there was no doubt, then I wouldn't try it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done 100-mile running races. I want to try a race that I don't know that I could finish.
Mm-hmm.
I want adventures that I'm not sure how they're going to go.
That's really the definition of adventure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I look at something and if I know it's going to go smoothly, then it doesn't drive me. I dropped out of the Hardrock 100.
Okay.
And I would love to go back. That was a
Okay.
hard one for me too.
Mhm.
After I dropped out, I wouldn't have made the cutoff time.
Okay.
There really was no way I would have made the cutoff time.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped a little bit short of where they would have allowed me to go.
Oh, you did? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I knew I wasn't going to finish,
Mm-hmm.
I still should have gone
Mm-hmm.
as far as they would have let me.
Interesting. Yeah. And just something in you wasn't ready to go there.
Yeah, now at 42 hours into the event, I was like, oh, well, I might as well stop here.
Not thinking, we think differently in the middle of it all.
Right.
We really do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something you have to deal with.
Oh, totally. But then you work through it like a lot of us do, and we keep going. We sign up for something else. We look
Right.
for the next adventure.
Right.
I had that experience just this week with some of my friends, right? They had maybe not the best time out there, but 24, 48 hours later, we're talking about the next race,
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
And that's a different kind of person.
Yeah.
That's the tribe that we hang out in. That's just
Right.
the people that we, that resonate with us.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. And then those are the races that we like to create. I mean, you definitely, right? That's why that race is so special to you.
Yeah, and I talk to the staff before every race, and I say everybody out here is doing something amazing, and you don't know what's going on for that person. Even if they're running our 10K or our 150-mile race, to that person, they want to do the best that they can.
Right. That could be the biggest thing they've ever done in their life right there that
Right.
day. Mhm.
Right.
And at one point that was for us. I mean, we all have that story. We all started at zero, for goodness sake.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you were asking about my upbringing. As a family, we used to run 10Ks all the time.
Mm.
You know, this was back in
So
the
dad
80s.
was a runner and mom?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Wrestling, what do you have any highs and lows there? I bet you got a few.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
wrestled for a long time.
I did. Actually, last year I came up on 40 years of wrestling.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm a black belt in Brazilian Ju Jitsu,
Mhm.
and I've competed in the cage. I've fought MMA in the cage.
Mm.
I love that.
That
side
is
of
some
it.
scrappy shit, dude. That
Yeah.
is like,
Yeah.
that's crazy time right there.
It's fun.
When someone else is a predator on you, that's
Yeah.
a whole other sport.
Right. Well, right. I look at the 100 milers, and I think, well, nobody's waiting in the bushes to kick me in the head.
That's right. Well, listen, we did see mountain lion tracks at Desert Rats.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Mickey and I came across mountain lion
Yeah.
tracks. Oh yeah, legit.
Nice.
And we're like, okay, we need to
See,
stay together
that's
for a while.
way more dangerous. Rock climbing is way more dangerous than cage fighting.
I don't know about that. Yeah, that's true. We probably, yeah. Interesting thought though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So what was the high and what was the low there?
See, this is kind of my personality. I remember the lows.
You
Definitely
do,
remember the lows.
but
Yeah.
not so much the highs.
I remember. Here's a good one. I was competing in a little local tournament,
Okay.
just getting ready for some bigger tournaments. I
How
was
old were you?
probably 30
Okay.
years old. And I was getting in these local tournaments in preparation for international tournaments.
Okay.
And I was having some neck problems and nerve being pinched in my arm, and things were not going well.
Hmm.
And at this little local tournament, I lost a couple matches. And at the level that I competed at, that shouldn't happen. And I was really upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back behind the school. I was just crying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my life. What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I was out there for a long time. And in the middle of it, I look up, and there's people of all ages, you know, little kids and everybody competing in this tournament. And I look up, and there's like a 10-year-old kid sitting next to me, staring at me, eating a sandwich. And, oh, this is not where I need to be.
Yeah. Did he say anything to you?
Nope, just sat there and stared at me.
He just looked at you.
Yeah.
What went through your head?
Just wondering why I'm doing this.
Uh-huh.
You know, I went through a rough time toward the end of my wrestling career.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come to a place where you understand that you're never going to be as good as you hoped you would be.
Mm-hmm.
And again, people could look at you and say, "Oh, you did some great things." It's not what I wanted. It's not what I worked for. It's not what I spent hours and hours training for.
Mm.
And my career was on the downslide, and everybody else's was growing that I was
Mhm.
competing against.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get out.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy.
Mm-hmm.
If I won, it's because the other guy was a chump. If I lost, it's because I suck.
Oh, interesting.
You know, never happy. So,
Yeah.
and then I had to give that up, and that was a big part of my life.
Yeah. A huge part of your
Yeah.
life. Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Did you replace it with something else?
So ultra running. I got into
Okay.
ultra running, and I was doing some adventure racing. And
Mm-hmm. So you really started that in your early 30s?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Probably my first big endurance event was the Eco Challenge.
Awesome. What
Yeah.
year was that?
96,
Sweet. Where was it?
British Columbia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that one. I've watched that film.
Yeah.
Now I have to go back and see if you're in it.
Some of my teammates are like in background.
What was the
some
name of the
shots.
team?
We're fun.edu.
What the hell was that?
It was-
Fun.edu?
Right. A sponsor.
University.
Well, it was somebody that was trying to create educational software.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So
Ah, that's fantastic.
yeah, it was interesting. And then I came back from that, and now I look back at it and understand all the things that I was doing wrong. I was doing a lot of climbing at the time and
Mhm.
alpine climbing, but I wasn't really doing endurance events.
That is a long ass endurance event.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
But there's an endurance mentality that I didn't have at the time.
Not yet. You had to develop it.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. Well, how long does the wrestling match last?
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Right,
Right. So you went from a sport where 6 minutes was the normal competition
right.
to going into adventure racing, and you went into a 10-day adventure race.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's a huge leap.
It is, but it's not as big of a leap as you would think.
What are the similarities?
So compare it to mixed martial arts, getting in the cage, and you have all this intensity for a short time versus a 100-mile running race. And actually, I won a cage fight and attempted the Hardrock, made it 87 miles of Hardrock in the same season.
Oh my
actually.
goodness.
My fight was in April, and then Hardrock was in July or August. Or
Wow. Uh-huh.
But there's that intensity. There's that inner drive that both of them have, and probably the biggest connection between the two is pain.
Yeah.
They both
Being
have
willing to suffer.
Yes, and wanting to suffer,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to push through it and get an accomplishment beyond the pain.
Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Because you seek it out.
I do.
Right. So there's one thing like being able to endure and suffer and having a tolerance and understanding it and being able to move through it and process it.
Right.
It's another to seek it out.
Right.
You're a seeker.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I look for it.
Yeah. Because it does what? What happens to you when you explore that and experience it?
For me, it makes me feel alive.
Mm-hmm.
It opens up my eyes. I don't want to just go cruising through life. I don't drink. I don't do drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even do caffeine.
Mm-hmm. You're missing out on that, I'll tell you.
Well, that one, so
I won't give that up.
Right.
Yeah.
In endurance events,
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
do some
take some in.
caffeine.
Mm.
But I think those drugs and alcohol kind of dull the senses.
Absolutely.
And you might think it makes you feel more alive, but it's in a different world.
It alters your perception.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather look at the world as it is.
Mm-hmm. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes. And appreciate it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
All aspects of it.
Yeah.
And when I suffer and accomplish, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Willing to accept every aspect of who you are, the strengths and the weaknesses.
Right.
How else are you going to find out what your strengths and weaknesses are if you don't test your strengths and your weaknesses?
Yes, exactly. And I used to say that I enjoyed training for a 25-mile race, but I enjoy even more training for a 25-mile race and then doing a 30-mile race.
That's kind of my mode. That's what I do all the time. I undertrain and I show up at shit. Part of it is just time and availability and whatever, not wanting to get injured, so one of my training methodologies is going to slightly undertrain.
Right.
Sometimes that's a win, sometimes it's not.
Right.
But it's funny that you said that because that is a really mental game right there.
Yeah.
A powerful one.
Right.
A powerful one,
What can I do with the training that I have? And how tough am I? And how far can I push myself?
Mm-hmm.
If I trained for a 50-mile and I did a 50K, well, then that's all in the training.
Yeah.
It's not telling me how tough I am.
Yeah. All right. Woo! Let's stop and catch our breath. I want to tell you a little bit about our presenting sponsor, Race Roster. Honestly, I've tried pretty much every registration platform that's out there. Nobody can touch the level of customer service and genuine business growth partnership available at Race Roster. They take the stress out of running my business and give me back the confidence and marketing tools I need to succeed. Catch a demo at raceroster.com/Endurance Town USA. You also have done coaching. Is that primarily wrestling or have you coached different types of athletes?
Mostly wrestling, yeah.
Okay.
Wrestling and mixed martial arts.
So your style as a coach, I can only imagine, but tell me a little bit about your coaching style.
Yeah, the people I've coached might have a different perspective.
What ages are you coaching?
So now I'm coaching adults.
Okay, but it used to be youth?
I used to coach high school
Okay.
wrestling,
Mhm.
and I've done some middle school and little kids. I enjoy coaching the older age groups,
Mhm.
like the high school and adults.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty firm.
Are you?
Yep.
Mhm.
A friend of mine one time said that people tend to give what they need, and I don't tend to need I don't tend to need hand holding,
Okay. Mhm.
right? So I don't
You
tend
don't
to
give that
hold
then.
hands. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I give support, and I think I'm pretty good at managing and looking at technical sides of things. Um, so in my sport, in wrestling, I could break things down pretty well and try to figure out what each individual person needs.
Okay.
I don't like putting things out that fit everybody.
Mhm.
And I maybe as I've grown older, it's not as much about winning and losing as it is about the experience. You know, I don't like to teach to what they're going against as much as what they need for themselves.
What do you mean by that?
So I think that technically in wrestling, if you teach somebody to be a good wrestler and to keep everything tight and sharp, then it doesn't matter who they go against. Some coaches will look at their opponent and say, okay, this is what you need to do. I say, this is what you need to do regardless of who you're going against.
I see. Mhm.
And in the running, and doing these races, you look at what is it that they're going to get out of it for themselves. Not are they going to uh, cross that finish line, but what are they going to get out of it? And that's probably more how I'm experiencing it now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I used to push myself pretty hard to win.
So the race or the competition is ultimately about the individual against themselves
Yes,
and less about the competition against another
right,
or the environment or the circumstances and all of that. It's
Right.
really what's happening within the person.
right,
And that's
Yeah.
really where the win comes from,
right,
irrelevant of how they do.
right.
If it's a shitstorm, they can still have a huge win as an individual.
But don't get me wrong, there are that winning or accomplishing something
Mhm.
feels pretty good, right?
It does.
I used to
It
say when I
does.
was coaching, the sorry, I used to say when I was coaching,
Yeah.
it's all about having fun, and the best way to have fun is to win,
Oh, nice. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it really is about what's going on internally, but those outward pieces add to the whole experience.
Mhm.
And if you could train hard and complete a 150-mile race through the desert, that's going to be the ultimate in that accomplishment.
Mhm.
So it's not just about the training and the beauty and the pushing yourself.
Mhm.
It's pushing yourself and accomplishing it.
Mhm.
That's really the best way to go.
Mhm.
But if you don't accomplish it, then you need to look at what else you got out of it.
And what you can do with what you learned, like what's
Right.
next, huh?
Right. Yep.
Mhm. So what are some of the things that are next for you?
For me personally,
So you personally, that can
Mhm.
be adventure sports, it can be business, it can be anything. What are your next missions?
well, tomorrow I'm going into Canyonlands and doing a little pack rafting.
Okay.
But beyond that, I don't have any races that I'm doing right now. I had
Okay.
an injury this past year that set me back a little bit.
You broke your leg.
Broke my leg.
Mhm.
Yep.
On an adventure?
No,
And what were you-
wrestling.
Oh,
I
hell.
was wrestling.
Okay. Mhm.
Broke my leg in 3 places.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so that set me back a little bit. So as far as the physical things that I want to do, I'm not sure where I'm going with races or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um,
You're still biking. I saw you mountain biking this week out there.
yep,
So
yep.
you're
I'm
okay
still
to do that?
biking and I'm hiking and doing a little bit of running.
Okay.
It's pretty much there.
Mhm.
Maybe the drive is just a little bit behind the recovery.
Did you learn anything while you were injured and being down like that in a forced recovery mode?
So every day for almost 30 years, I run 1 mile. I stretch for about an hour after that. And I miss about 10 days a year. So, it's not every day.
Mm-hmm.
But so I've been doing that for about 30 years. And when I broke my leg, I was really upset because I wouldn't be able to do that.
Mm.
But I was determined not to let that keep me down.
Mm-hmm.
So I started crutching a mile every morning.
Crutching?
Crutching a mile
Are
every
you
morning.
talking about you were on your crutches
on my
and you went
crutches.
out and you
Right.
did a mile on your crutches?
Yep. Yep. And then I started working towards goals, like trying to get a faster mile on my crutches.
Oh my gosh.
And I broke a 20-minute mile, and then I was hoping to break a 15-minute mile.
On crutches?
On crutches. I
Oh,
got down to
shit.
15:38, and then my leg got better.
That's hilarious.
But what did I learn?
Yeah. what'd you
I'm
learn?
always afraid that the only reason I'm able to do some of these things is because of the gifts I was given. I'm not working, I'm not just trying to survive. I'm not having to hunt down animals to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, living in poverty anywhere, somewhere in the world that's just trying to find my next meal.
Mm.
So that's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I'm physically capable, that's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of things that I was born into. So I always wonder, what if I didn't have those gifts? Could I still be strong?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to be strong when you're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to be strong when things are coming your way. What happens when they're not going your way?
That's right. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hope that when things aren't going my way, that I could be strong. And don't get me wrong, the broken leg is not as major as it could have been,
Right.
or that people deal with.
Yeah.
But I saw that where most people would give in to that injury, I was out there working hard and pushing myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
We went on vacation, and I was like crawling down to the beach.
You went to Costa Rica.
Went to Costa Rica.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And there were people there that were trying to help me get down to the beach. Nope, I've got it. And crawling and using my crutches and
Mm-hmm.
hobbling down to the beach, and
Mm-hmm.
just so that I didn't feel that I was giving into this injury.
Interesting. Yeah. It's just you've got this sort of almost endless well that you keep digging into, but it's endless, right? Like you don't. What are you going to be doing when you're 80 or 90 or 100? Do you have any ideas, or do you even care?
So I don't know that I have this endless well, but I have this fear
Of
that I don't have this endless well.
really?
And I feel that every time I miss that morning run, that 1 mile morning run,
Yeah.
that's the start of my downhill slide.
Is that right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I get injured and I can't do the things I want to do, I feel that's the start of my downhill slide.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And
How old are you?
50.
Okay.
I just turned 50.
So I'm 49. I'm going to turn 50 next year. And there's a lot of interesting things that happen at these major turning points in our age, right? Where we sort of do this like retrospect. Are we the halfway mark? I mean, that's
Right.
kind of one way to think about it.
Right.
And does the halfway mark mean, because we're going to live to 100, right? I mean,
Right,
everybody's
right.
living longer and longer.
Yeah.
Does it mean that we're somehow capable of less? Or is there actually the opportunity that we're somehow capable of more?
So here's my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was at a pretty good place at one point in my life with wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
Physically.
Your first sport, your first love.
Right. And I can't not get there again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality of it. I will never be as good as I was. And even with the running, I have some questions as to whether I could get back to some of the ultra running that I was doing before. And I was never a good ultra runner, but I had some pretty good accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the way I look at it. you have two choices as you get older. You could either quit or you could lower your standards.
Mm-hmm.
And both are pretty good options.
Mm-hmm.
If I've reached the point where I am done with wrestling and I walk away from it, that's pretty good. I've done it and I've experienced it, and now I'm done.
With
So-
that chapter.
With that chapter, right. So quitting is not a bad thing. The other option is lowering your standards. If I could go in there every day now and I wrestle with these young guys that are way younger and stronger and more athletic than me, and they beat me now,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay too if I'm enjoying it. If I go in there, I don't have to win every day now
Good.
because I can't win now. So if I could lower my standards
Mhm.
and say, if I do the best that I can now and continue doing the sports that I love, even if I don't do them at the same level that I used to, I'm lowering my standards, but that's not a bad thing. So you've got the two choices, either quit or lower your standards.
I think you've got a third choice, and you actually have exercised it well, which is finding new things, right? So
Right.
learn something new. So you go, I'm
Right.
going to not do wrestling competitively anymore.
Right.
What the hell is this ultra running thing about? What's adventure
Right.
racing about?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'd quit wrestling. I'd walk away from wrestling.
Mhm.
And that's okay because, yes, I will find something else.
Yes.
I will find ultra running. And if so, at some point I'm no longer interested in the ultra running and I decide, well, I'm going to quit ultra running
Mhm.
and I find whitewater rafting.
Mhm.
That's okay that I quit the ultra running.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
Mhm. And you're going to show up at an adventure race pretty soon with me, and then
Yeah,
that's going to be
definitely.
that whole thing.
Right.
Which you've done, but you'll do it again. And now that
Yes.
you're doing it with all these years of knowledge and experience and expertise in different arenas that you never had before, it's going to be a totally different experience.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that side of it.
You
I-
might come up with a different team name, for
Right,
example.
right. The early days of the internet. Yeah, those days are gone.
All the teams were like .coms and .orgs. It was just
They were,
it was very
like-
common.
I think like 60% of the team names had the word extreme in them. There was some weird statistic at the time.
That's
that
awesome.
said
Oh, I
that.
love that yours had fun in it.
Right,
That's
right,
just,
right.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun for 10 days.
Oh yeah, right. Fun.edu.
Oh, that's so cool. So I have a couple more questions for you. I'm curious about, I've seen you in a lot of different formats, and you know yourself pretty well. I feel like you do a lot of deep personal work, and probably a lot of it is because you're so damn adventurous and you're willing to, go to the dark side, go to the light side, and explore lots
Right,
of
yeah.
aspects of yourself. What would you say brings out the worst in you? Qualities you don't love about yourself.
Well, as we were talking about before, I fear the weakness
Mm.
in myself. And those same things that attract me are also the things that I fear. I want to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to dig deep. So I push those limits.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I find that limit, it's very troubling to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because you're faced with the fact that you're human, or that you have limits, or what aspect of it is troubling?
That I'm not the toughest son of a bitch out there.
I see.
I know that in
it's
my
a
heart.
comparative to others then.
Well, I know that something's possible.
Mm-hmm.
If something isn't possible and I fail at it, well, okay. I died trying.
Mm-hmm.
But if I know that something's possible and I feel that it was the weakness in myself
Mm-hmm.
that didn't allow me to accomplish it, then that's troubling to me.
So do you go back and work on that weakness, or do you accept it?
I reluctantly accept it probably. I'm continually testing my limits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I keep trying to figure out where those limits are,
Mm.
and not just physically, because again, as I get older, those limits are getting lower.
Mm-hmm.
but that mental drive,
Mm-hmm.
was I able to push through it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's things from wrestling. I could think of a couple losses in wrestling
Mm-hmm.
that haunt me.
Still sting.
That not because of technical, but because I gave up when I was out there.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you find that you believe more in others or in yourself?
I'd have to say others.
Okay.
I look at, like I said, I know I'm not the toughest person out there. And when people compliment me, say, wow, it's amazing you ran 100 miles. Well, I ran 100 miles really slowly. There's people who do it fast,
Yeah.
and I wrestled internationally. Well, it's not like it was the Olympics or anything,
Mm-hmm.
I look at what other people do, and I'm amazed by it. And I really I wish I was that strong, or I wish I was that accomplished. And people say, that some of the stuff I do is dangerous. No, that's not dangerous. Look at what he's doing. Now that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you have fear? I'm only jumping off of a 30-foot cliff. People dive off of 100-foot cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing is amazing. Not what I'm doing. I'm dabbling a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So if you die doing something dangerous, and that's the world's perception, not yours, you're okay with that?
So, could you rephrase it? Or
Yeah.
what are you asking?
Well, we do kind of do risky stuff in relationship to the rest of the world, right? So most of the population is sitting at a desk and having a very different lifestyle than, ultra athletes are choosing to do.
Right.
And I have plenty of friends who say, if I died doing this sport, I'm totally okay with that because I'm doing what I love. I'm taking risks and I'm okay with that. You not so much?
No, I don't think that anybody, if you're rock climbing, you don't really think that there's a risk you might die.
Mm-hmm. You feel like you got it and that's why you're doing it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And people say that, I think, to make themselves feel more comfortable with somebody's death.
Mm-hmm.
But if that person knew they were going to die on that rock climb, I could
They'd
promise
stop.
you they would not have done it.
They'd stop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel that I take calculated risks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm pretty good at calculating those risks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe everybody does. Even the people who die doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think mine are very, very calculated and within reach.
That's good.
I don't. I'm not out for a cheap thrill.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a period where I was trying to get that adrenaline rush,
Mm-hmm.
and I was bungee jumping and skydiving and all those things. Some cheap thrills back in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there anymore. It's not worth dying for me.
No, you've got a life and a family and a business and
Got a lot to live for.
a lot to live for. So my last question then is, what do you feel brings out the best in you?
A challenge.
A challenge.
A good challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. An obstacle to get past.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have something to work for, I could dig and I could focus.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that I really want, boy, I spent a lot of time thinking about ultra running.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a lot of time thinking about wrestling, and putting those thoughts into action. And I think when I put my mind to something, a big challenge that I'm afraid I might not accomplish,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I focus and
You go all in.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you're all in is when you're at your happiest.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. When I don't have to think, when I know what my next step is, I just keep taking those steps
Mm-hmm.
until I achieve, or until I've reached a point where I can't take any more steps.
Mm-hmm. And you do the work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I love it. Well, this was such a pleasure. Thanks for being here with me and Moab and hanging out and
Yeah.
get
thanks
to
for
know you a
having
little
me.
bit better. I'm sure this will not be the last time we hang out.
No. We'll talk We'll talk soon.
We
We've got a
will.
lot to talk about.
Thanks, Reid.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to Reid for carving out so much of his time to sit down with Sam today. If you'd like to know more about Gemini Reid, go to GeminiAdventures.com about us. Also, make sure you follow our host Samantha Pruitt on Instagram at @TheSamanthaPruitt. You can also learn more about her through our website, EnduranceTownUSA.com. And thank you for joining us on this adventure to Endurance Town, USA, where we travel the world to sit down and chat with regular people living the endurance lifestyle. Thanks again to our partners at Race Roster for making this Faces Behind the Races mini-series possible. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit subscribe today to hear more great stuff as it lands. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Endurance Town USA to see behind-the-scenes photos, videos, and more. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you the next time we go on an adventure to Endurance Town USA.
Bring it back.